Story 1. You ever haul something that makes you feel like you're the cargo, not the driver? This load did that to me. It started with a dead ship. Big ocean freighter came in with no crew on board. No captain, no radio, nobody on deck. Just drifting into the harbor. Coast Guard went up the gangway and found coffee cups still out, lights still on, every chair empty. They said some of the bodies were already zipped and stacked, like somebody tried to start a morgue down there and ran out of time. Couple days later, I'm in that same port, waiting on a regular box. Dispatcher calls, voice tight, asks if I want to make real money today. I was behind on my truck payment and a couple months behind on life. So I said the word every driver says right before his worst story. Sure. They walked me past a line of containers from that ghost ship. Even in the sun, you could feel the cold rolling off them, not freezer cold, hospital cold. One of the boxes had yellow biohazard stickers slapped over the doors, some old and peeled, some fresh and bright. Paperwork said equipment. The guy in the hard hat leaned in and said, "Lo, you hook this. You don't open it. You don't stop in town. You don't ask questions. 48 hours, in and out. Cash. You good with that, driver?" You can laugh, kid. But I stood there breathing that chemical stink, counting my past due notices in my head. Yeah, I see you shivering. I'll kick the heat on in a minute. You wanted a ride out of the rain. You're getting that. And the story of why I don't touch port loads anymore. I said yes to that container. That's when my 48 hours started. They made me sign extra papers for that load. Not the usual stack either. Short, clean, with one line that stuck in my head. Driver acknowledges the sensitive nature of the cargo and agrees to follow instructions without deviation. No company letterhead, no logo. Just a stamp and a place for my name. I hooked under the box, felt the trailer squat harder than it should have. I've hauled heavy all my life, you know, when it's steel and when it's something else. This felt dense. Dead weight. The kind that doesn't shift. When the lock snapped, I felt the cold come through the frame. Not blowing like from a reefer unit, just soaking. Like the metal itself was storing winter. Guy in the hard hat handed me half the cash in an envelope. Rest on delivery. Straight through 48 hours. Don't make this a sightseeing trip. I rolled up to the port gate. Usual booth, usual tired guard. He took my papers, scanned the container number, then froze. His eyes went past me, over my shoulder, into the cab. "You alone up there?" he asked. "Last I checked," I said. "Unless you see somebody I don't." He didn't smile. Scanned again, slower. The screen lit his face green, then red, then back to normal. He handed my license back with 2 fingers, like it was dirty. "Gate's open," he said. "Just don't stop inside city limits, driver. Not with that one." Out past the fences, the port lights dropped away behind me. First cough hit about then. Deep, dry, down where you know it's not allergies. I told myself it was the AC. Radio talked about a mysterious illness among the crew of a derelict freighter brought in 2 days ago. Same port, same ship. And in the mirror, that yellow-marked box rode behind me like a hearse nobody ordered. The weight started bothering me first. You haul long enough, your back and your brakes learn to tell the truth better than any paper. This thing pulled different. On flat ground, it felt like I was climbing. On a grade, it sometimes felt lighter, like whatever was in there was holding its breath with me. Out past the city, I hit a truck stop with a scale. Habit. Rolled on, watched the numbers climb. The readout blinked, then flashed a total a good 5 tons heavier than what my manifest said. Guy in the little scale shack leaned out his window with the ticket, squinted at my trailer, then at the slip. "You sure that paperwork's right?" he asked. "That's what they gave me." He checked the container number, and something in his face closed up, like a door slamming without a sound. "Yeah," he muttered. "Guess it's right enough. No extra charge, just roll." Didn't try to sell me anything. Didn't crack a joke. Just vanished back inside and killed the light. Out on the interstate, the night settled in hot and sticky, but my cab kept getting colder. I turned the AC down, then off. Still cold. That kind of cold that feels like it's coming up from the floor, from the frame. Like the steel itself remembers a different temperature. Smell changed too. Not diesel, not road funk. Sharp, sour sweet like cleaning chemicals and old metal. If you've ever been near a hospital basement, you'd know it. I decided to sleep in the truck that first night. Didn't want to leave that box alone on some motel lot. Somewhere before dawn, I dreamed the passenger door opened. A man climbed in, dripping wet. Work jacket, sea-stained, water running off the cuffs onto my floor mat. He sat down, didn't look at me, just stared out through the windshield like he'd been riding with me for hours. When I jerked awake, the cab was empty, but there were damp, bare footprints on the mat, not coming in from the step, coming from behind my seat. Don't give me that look. I know what wet footprints mean. I sat there a long time, staring at that mat, trying to come up with any version of reality where I hadn't just had a soaked stranger in my cab while I slept. Window leak? Condensation? I checked every seal, every latch. Dry. Footprints faded while I watched, like the floor was swallowing them. I told myself I was tired. I fired up, rolled back onto the highway, told the radio to drown my brain out. Didn't help. Every station I flipped to, sooner or later, someone was talking about that ship. Unidentified respiratory illness among recovered crew, they called it now. Highly contagious. Under investigation. They said no risk to the public, a little too often. I started coughing for real around then. Deep, dry, from the bottom of the lungs. Little red flecks in the napkin when I checked. I crumpled it and shoved it in the door pocket like that made it not real. Sometime past midnight, the traffic thinned out. Just me, the yellow lines, the box in the mirror. That was the first time I heard it. At first, I thought it was wind noise, a low rustle under the engine. Then it settled into a pattern. Voices, more than one. Not loud, not panicked. Like a few men talking in the next room with the door almost closed. I pulled onto an empty ramp and stopped. Killed the engine. Let the night get quiet. The voices didn't stop. I climbed down, walked back along the trailer, gravel crunching under my boots, heart doing its own little sprint. Put my ear to the cold metal. On the other side, close, too close, somebody whispered, "He's listening." Then whoever it was started coughing. Same dry, tearing sound I just heard from my own chest. I stayed out there longer than I should have. Ear on that steel like an idiot. At some point, survival instinct woke up. Whatever was on the other side of that door, I didn't want to meet it with my face 6 inches away. I climbed back in the cab, slammed the door, and got us rolling. Didn't make it to the next mile marker before my phone lit up. No name. Just a number that didn't look like any area code I knew. I let it ring twice, then put it on speaker. Yeah. Driver. Calm male voice. No accent, no rush. The kind of tone you use when you've practiced the script. "Mr. Harris," he said. Full last name. We see your unit stopped on the ramp. Is there a problem with the cargo? Every hair on my arm stood up. Who is this? A liaison, he said. For the client, you agreed to follow instructions without deviation. That includes unnecessary stops. I glanced at the mirror. Biohazard stickers caught my headlights in a sick yellow glow. There's noise in there, I said. Voices, coughing. You want to explain that? Residual audio, he answered, like he'd expected the question. Mechanical, structural, not living. Do not engage with it. Do not open the doors. Do not approach populated areas. Continue en route. Do you understand? And if I need a doctor? There was a small pause. I heard typing, or maybe I imagined it. Your symptoms fit expected exposure, he said. The safest place for you and the public is alone in that vehicle, in motion, toward the terminal. The faster you deliver, the better for everyone involved, including you. I checked the clock on the dash. I'd been out of the port maybe 6 hours. His next line buried a hook in my gut. You are at hour 16, he said. Don't lose track of time, driver. Call dropped. No goodbye. I killed the radio, hit record on my phone, and set it on the dash. Go ahead, I whispered toward the sleeper. Talk now. The voices in the box started up again, low and steady. Men coughing, something about cold water and sealed doors, one of them using my first name. When I played the recording back, there was nothing but static, engine noise, and one long, lonely ship horn, like it was blowing right under my wheels. This is the part you're going to judge me for. After that call, I just drove. Didn't want music, didn't want talk radio, just the road noise and my own breathing to keep me honest. Didn't work. My chest hurt like somebody had set up barbed wire in there. Every cough felt hooked. I dug an old plastic thermometer out of the glove box, stuck it under my tongue at a fuel stop. 102. I told myself it was wrong. Cheap plastic, old battery, whatever lie was handy. Time didn't behave right either. My logbook said one thing, the dash clock another, my phone a third. I could swear I'd only been rolling a few hours since the port. But when I checked the odometer and did the math, it felt like whole chunks of the trip were missing. Like I'd blacked out and the truck hadn't. Somewhere near midnight, the highway signs started listing city exits. Gas, food, hospital. Big blue board with a red emergency symbol glowing like a stoplight for the dying. The voices in the box got busier the closer I got to those lights. Not louder, more agitated. Boots on metal. Someone saying, "Not the town, not again." I took the off-ramp anyway. Habit. Sick driver, sick load, you go find people smarter than you. Sat at the top of the ramp, turned signal ticking toward the hospital, hands on the wheel, that yellow box filling my mirror. I pictured pulling into that lot coughing blood, telling some night nurse I'd been hauling a biohazard container off a ghost ship and hearing things in the trailer. Whole place would lock down. Town, staff, everybody inside. And I'd be standing there with my name on the paperwork. I clicked the blinker off, eased back onto the interstate, and aimed the truck away from the hospital in the glow of town. Don't look at me like that, I told you when I first picked you up. You weren't there. You didn't hear them. Behind me, something slow and heavy slid across the container floor, like bodies turning over in their sleep. You keep asking why I didn't just crack the doors and let whoever was in there out. I thought about it. Don't think I didn't. Somewhere past the hospital exit, I pulled into one of those forgotten rest areas. No lights, but the sodium glow on the vending machines and the bugs that worship it. Killed the engine, sat there listening. The voices were clearer now. less like echoes, more like men at the next table. He passed the hospital. One of them rasped. They always pass it. They don't want the questions. I got out, walked back, hand on the trailer as I went. The steel felt like the side of a ship in January. Frost cold in summer air. That's when I saw the sticker I'd missed before. Half peeled off under the biohazard signs, letters faded but still readable if you knew how to squint. Quarantine, 48 hours, sealed. Somebody had taken a pen and written a date next to it. Not the day they pulled the ship in, the day I'd hooked the box. On the other side of that door, a man started talking like he knew me. "Harris," he croaked. First time I heard my name come out of there. They locked us in with the dead. Said it was safer. Said the cold would slow it down. Another cough, wet and ugly. "You're breathing what we breathe, driver. You think you're outside this, but you're in the same box. You're just on the warm side." My phone buzzed. Text message, no sender ID. ETA confirmed. Do not stop. 32 hours remaining. I stood there between the glow of that little screen and the black shape of the container, throat burning, eyes watering for more than the smell. Inside, somebody whispered, very calm, very tired. "Question is, Harris, who are you trying to save by finishing this run?" The doors gave one slow, heavy shudder, like something on the other side had finally stood up. You ever notice how the GPS looks nervous sometimes? Mine did when the text came in with the final address. Not a street, not a normal terminal name. Just coordinates and a 3-letter code I'd never seen before. I punched it in anyway. Screen zoomed out, hesitated, then painted a thin gray road through a patch of nowhere. No towns, no truck stops, no friendly blue signs. Just a dead industrial spur cutting off from the interstate. By then, my fever was swinging. One minute I was sweating through the seat, the next I was shivering so hard my teeth knocked. The voices in the box had gone quiet, but it wasn't a good quiet. It was the kind of quiet you get right before a wave hits. I got off the highway onto a cracked 2-lane, followed a fence line half-eaten by rust and vines. Old warning signs hung sideways on one hinge. Biohazard symbols faded to ghosts. Gate finally showed up around a bend. No logo, no company name. Just chain link, razor wire, one yellow floodlight, and a booth with a man in it who looked like he'd been sitting there since the first quarantine on Earth. He stepped out slow, wearing a mask that had been white once. Looked at my plates, then at the container, then at me. "You're late," he said. Not angry, just tired. "Clock says I'm early," I told him. "Not that clock." He glanced at the box. "Pull through, follow the markers. Don't get out till they tell you." Gate buzzed, rolled aside. Inside, the road turned from asphalt to stained concrete. Rows of old containers stood stacked like tombstones, some burned, some split open and empty. You asked me what I saw first when I pulled around that last corner. It wasn't the men in suits. It was the hole. The ground just ended in front of me. A wide black pit full of twisted metal boxes piled on top of each other like someone had been burying whole pieces of the ocean. They waved me right up to the edge of that hole. Couple of them in gray hazmat suits, not bright white movie gear, just scuffed, work-stained. One had a clipboard, one had a handheld scanner. No badges, no names, no company on the trucks parked back by the fence. "Set your brakes, leave it running," clipboard said. "Step down slow." Up close, the pit was worse. Containers crushed and twisted into each other, some burned black, some with old logos, half melted off. You ever see cars piled after a hurricane? Like that, only every one of them used to be somebody's last paycheck. One of the suited guys came up with a scanner, pointed it at my forehead, then at his little screen. "Phase 2, he said to the clipboard. "He's hot." They didn't move toward me, didn't move away either. Just kept that quiet space like I was already kind of on the other side of a glass wall. "Cargo first," clipboard said. He gave a little hand signal and 2 more suits went to my doors. They didn't rip them open. They cracked them a foot, maybe less. Enough for the cold to roll out in a white sheet and hit the warm air like smoke. Inside I saw metal and canvas. Rows. Body bags strapped to racks. A couple of dull gray coffins with stenciled numbers. Toe tags swinging on stiff feet that weren't going anywhere else. Someone in a black coat with a collar I didn't want to look at murmured something that sounded like a prayer and made a quick, shaky cross in the air. Clipboard walked back to me, held out an envelope and a thin folder. "Your compensation, your release. Sign." Folder was light. 1 sheet on top with a list of names: crew, dock workers, contractors. Next to most of them, a date. Dead, dead, dead. My last name was on there twice. Printed neat in the driver column. Then again, farther down, added by hand in a different pen. No date next to it yet. I didn't sign right away. You'd think fear would make your hand shake straight onto the line, but it did the opposite. I just stood there with that folder open, listening to the idling engine and the wind moving over all that buried steel. Clipboard didn't pressure me, just waited, envelope in his hand like a tip for a job well done. "What happens if I don't?" I asked. He looked almost surprised I'd spoken. "Container goes in the ground either way. Clock runs out either way. Paper just decides whether you drive out of here or lie down in one of the other boxes." From the pit came a metallic groan as something shifted far below. "Look around you, Mr. Harris," he added. "Every driver you see on that sheet thought they were just doing their job. World doesn't need more panic. It needs fewer loose ends." My cough answered for me. Deep, wet, final. I signed. They took the paper, slipped the envelope into my hand, and stepped back like I was radioactive. Nobody shook my hand. Nobody thanked me. Someone signaled a crane. I was halfway into the cab when I heard the doors on the container slam. Metal on metal, then chains, then the whine of hydraulics as they dragged that whole cold morgue off my frame and swung it out over the hole. Didn't stay to watch it fall. I drove. Out past the fences, past the rusted signs, back onto real highway where nobody knew what I'd been hauling. Radio said cluster of pneumonia cases near the port and no cause for alarm, 3 times in 1 minute. My fever's lower now, but the cough never really left. Neither did the dreams. You asked why I was willing to pick up a stranger in the rain. Truth is, kid, I wanted somebody to hear this from my own mouth before my name gets its date. You think you're hauling freight from one place to another, but sometimes the freight writes your name on its list, and all you really do is drive yourself to where it's waiting. You can breathe, kid. That container run was a long time ago. Whatever I picked up back then turned into scars on my lungs, and doctors shaking their heads, calling it age and old damage. They can't quarantine a memory, so I just keep driving with it. And yeah, that's why I stopped for you tonight. Truth is, I haven't always been the guy who hits the brake when someone's standing on the shoulder. I had a good friend in a Peterbilt just like this one, who saw someone in trouble on a foggy night and kept his foot on the fuel. 12 hours later, they pulled what was left of his rig out from under a bridge. If you still want to ride along after that story, I'll tell you how one woman in the fog followed him all the way into the river Enjoying the ride? Subscribe and like the video to keep us rolling. Next story coming up. Story 2. This story ends under 30 tons of steel in the fog. Not mine, my friend's. He's rolling a Peterbilt 379, just like the one you're sitting in now. Nose pointed across a narrow 2-lane bridge over black water. It's past midnight. The kind of night where the fog doesn't just float over the river. It climbs the guardrails and walks out into the lanes. He's tired, but not falling apart tired. White lines, hum of the tires, engine in that steady, easy pull. Radio low, wipers pushing milk off the glass. The world is just a gray tunnel in his headlights. Then the bridge starts. You don't see it in that weather, you feel it. The sound under the tires changes, the air feels hollow. Fog thickens so bad his lights bounce straight back at him. Guardrail on the right is just a darker shadow in all that white. Speed's too high for conditions. Not crazy, just a little more than the fog is willing to forgive. Wheel twitches in his hands. Not a pothole, not the wind. Like the truck itself is second-guessing the lane. His foot goes to the brake and finds nothing but a soft, useless drop. ABS chatters once, and then the pedal feels like it's made of sponge. Out of the corner of his eye, on the passenger seat, there's a shape that shouldn't be there. Dark hair hanging wet over a jacket. Seatbelt pulled tight across an empty chest. Breath you can't see but swear you hear. Couple seconds after that, he turns the wheel on purpose. Not to miss a deer, to miss the headlights coming the other way. You want to know why a man does that after 20 years on the road? Then we roll it back. It started the night he saw her standing in the fog and didn't stop. About 12 hours before that bridge, it was just another night run. Same truck you're riding in now, more or less. Peterbilt 379, long nose, strong engine. Too many miles, not enough sleep. My buddy had been out 3 days. Coffee in the cup holder, energy drink in the door, half a sandwich turning into history on the dash. Fog was just starting then. Not the thick kind, more like low clouds dragging across the fields. Headlights made little halos in it. CB was quiet except for the usual late-night ghosts, drivers swapping weather, talking trash, warning about state troopers and bad exits. He told me he first saw the flashers before he saw her. Car on the shoulder, hazards blinking slow and tired. Light smeared out by the fog so it looked more like a red pulse than 4 separate bulbs. Hood up, door cracked. Classic no thanks situation for a man alone with a full load. Somebody on the radio even said it. Watch yourself past mile marker 63. Broken down 4-door on the right. Could be legit, could be a setup. Don't play hero tonight. He eased off the throttle anyway. As he came up, the fog thinned just enough to show a person standing behind the dead car. Bright jacket, backpack straps over both shoulders, one hand up in the air. Not blocking the lane, not jumping out, just asking. The polite kind of desperate. He said their eyes met. Just for a second through all that glass and distance. She mouthed something he couldn't hear. Please, or help, or anything human. His foot twitched toward the brake. Then he remembered the stories, the robberies, the guys who never made it past just one stop. And he put his boot back on the fuel. In the mirror, she ran a few steps after the trailer, hands still up. Then the fog took her back. An hour later, the fog stopped being scenery and turned into a problem. He was running a construction stretch, one of those long, ugly ones where they chew up 10 miles of highway just because they can. Cones, barriers, temporary signs every 100 yards. In clear weather, it's annoying. In fog, it's like threading a needle with your headlights. He said the light changed first. Instead of black sky and gray road, everything turned into a dirty white tunnel. The glow from the work lamps bounced around so much he couldn't tell where the beams ended and the air began. Guardrail on the right, concrete barriers on the left. Lane narrowed down to just enough for the Peterbilt and his shadow. He did the smart thing at first. Dropped speed, kicked on the flashers, kept his hands light on the wheel. Then the lane bent a little, cones shifted, and the fog thickened all at once, like somebody had pulled a blanket over the world. For a couple of seconds, he was driving by faith and memory alone. That's when he saw her. Not clear, not like a movie. Just a darker shape in all that milk, dead center in his lane. Same size, same jacket color, backpack straps dark against her shoulders. Too close, way too close. He hit the brakes. Pedals shuddered under his foot, ABS screaming, tires howling on wet concrete. But a loaded rig doesn't stop just because you beg it to. He felt the thump through the frame. Not big, not like hitting another truck. Just enough to tell him he hadn't imagined that shadow. The trailer fishtailed once, nudged a few cones to their death, then straightened out. He brought it to a shaking stop 20 yards down. When he climbed down, the fog swallowed his flashlight beam before it hit the ground. And there was no one standing in the lane anymore. He told me that stepping out of the cab felt like stepping onto another planet. The fog ate sound. The Peterbilt's engine idled behind him, but it might as well have been a mile away. Work lights glowed overhead somewhere, turning the air into a bright, dirty soup. He could see his boots. He couldn't see the end of his own hood. He walked around the front of the truck. The right side of the bumper was bent in, plastic cracked, chrome scarred. On the edge of it, just where the light caught, something dark clung to the metal. Not a lot. Just enough to tell him it wasn't from a cone. He wiped it with his glove. It smeared. He followed the line of the truck's path with his eyes. Cones lay broken and twisted along the lane, some shoved up against the barrier, some rolled into the middle like dead birds. The fog made everything look soft and harmless from 10 feet away. Up close, the concrete was spattered, the wet making every stain shine. No body, no shoes, no torn fabric, just a phone. He almost stepped on it. Black rectangle on wet gray concrete. Screen spiderwebbed, but still trying to glow. A little charm dangled from the case. Some cheap plastic star stained darker by the mist. He didn't pick it up. He told me he stood there a long time, trying to hear something over the blood in his own ears. A cry, a moan, anything. Nothing. In the end, he did what too many drivers do when the math in their head gets ugly. He told himself that nobody could live through that. That if she was gone, nothing he did now would change it. That if she wasn't, the next car, the next cop, the next ambulance would be better than a guilty trucker in the fog. He climbed back into the Peterbilt, wiped his hands on an old rag, and eased the rig back into gear. As he pulled away, the phone on the road lit up one more time. Incoming call. Next morning, he tried to pretend it had just been a bad stretch of road. He parked up at a little truck stop diner a couple 100 miles down. You know the kind. Burnt coffee, eggs that taste like yesterday's bacon, a TV bolted in the corner playing news nobody really watches. He told me his hands wouldn't stop shaking when he picked up the mug. That's where I saw him, actually. Same Peterbilt 379 you saw when we pulled in to get fuel. He slid into the booth across from me, looking like he'd driven through a war, not a work zone. Before he said a word, the TV stole his attention. Local news. Anchor with that serious but not too serious face. Behind her, a picture of a young woman. Bright jacket, same backpack straps. Parked car on the shoulder in the background, half lost in fog. Missing, the caption said. Last seen walking along the interstate after her vehicle broke down in heavy fog. Time window, sometime between 10 and 11 p.m. Exactly when he'd gone through that construction zone. They showed a close-up of her phone, the same kind of case, same little charm. He set his fork down and reached for his own cell like it weighed a ton. There was a missed call on the screen. Timestamp right on top of the hour he'd hit. Whatever he'd hit. Unknown number, no name. He stepped outside, hit redial with his thumb. He told me he heard road noise first. Hiss of tires on wet pavement. CB static, his own engine or one just like it. Then his own voice came through the speaker, clear as if he was leaning over his own shoulder. I'm not a taxi. I don't owe anybody a ride. Call dropped. Number not in service. When he looked down again, the missed call had a name under it. Hers. He didn't tell me everything that morning in the diner. Truckers never do. We hold back the parts that make us sound crazy until we're sure the other guy's not going to laugh us off the lot. The rest came out weeks later, middle of the night, parked side by side with both our 379s humming on idle. He said the first thing he noticed was the seat. He'd been running solo for years. You get used to how your cab sits around you, every rattle, every loose screw, the way the passenger cushion looks when it's empty. One night, a couple runs after the fog. He glanced over and thought, looks like somebody's sitting there. Just a little sag in the fabric, a faint pull in the belt like it had weight on it. Nothing you could take a picture of, just wrong enough for his stomach to tighten. Then came the smell. Not strong, not like spilled fuel or a dead critter. Just a hint of wet pavement and cheap perfume, the kind teenage girls drown themselves in before a concert. Every time he cracked the window to kill it, it only made things worse. Like the fog outside was trying to climb in and sit with him. One night, he actually picked up a hitchhiker. Different person, a kid in work boots and a ball cap trying to get home from some night shift. The boy fell asleep in the passenger seat, mouth open, head bouncing with the road. My friend swore that halfway through the drive, the kid sat up, eyes still closed, and said in a woman's voice, I was just trying to get to the next exit. Then he slumped back down, snoring. On a bathroom wall at the next truck stop, scratched into the tile over the urinal, my buddy found 4 words. He just drove past. He came back out to his Peterbilt, and on the inside of the passenger window, in the faint haze of his own breath, someone had written one more word with an invisible finger. Stop. The night he finally told me about the video, we were parked side by side behind a warehouse, both 379s ticking themselves cool. He climbed up into my cab with his phone and a little SD card pinched between 2 fingers like it was toxic. You ever have your own truck lie to you? He asked. I shrugged. Odometers, maybe. Not memories. He pulled up a file on his phone, propped it on my dash. That's the fog night. Watch. I expected the usual dash cam view. Hood, lane, bugs on the lens. What I saw looked higher, like the camera was mounted up on a road sign or floating over the shoulder. In the clip, his Peterbilt rolls into the construction zone, flashers on, fog everywhere. He slows, stops. Headlights paint a bright hole in the mist. He gets out. You can see him, clear as day, walking down the lane to a spot the camera never quite shows. He stands there too long, shoulders tight, like he's talking to someone low to the ground. Then he bends, like he's lifting weight, and drags something toward the shoulder, disappearing into the edge of the frame. A few minutes later, he walks back, climbs in, pulls away. My buddy shook his head while we watched. I remember barely stepping off the step. I never moved a body. I know I didn't. He swiped to the next file. 10-minute gap. The timestamp jumped right over the minute he felt the hit. Corrupted, he said. Just that piece. Like the road didn't want to be recorded. Then there was the GPS. Anytime he tried to punch in the nearest police station, or the girl's hometown, or even just a different route, the screen would redraw and snap the route line back across that same stretch of highway. Same mile marker, same bend before the bridge. One night, he ripped the SD card out of the dash cam and snapped it in half right there in the seat. Thought that was that, he said. Next morning, his phone buzzed with a fresh notification. New backup created. Fog Night 63 MP4. Saved to cloud. He tried to live with it for a while. Run your loads, keep your head down, don't look too long at the fog on the shoulder. That was his plan. But the thing about a bad mile is, the more you drive, the more every mile starts to look like that one. He told me one afternoon, parked up in Arizona, that he finally broke. Couldn't stop seeing that jacket, he said. Didn't matter if it was rain, dust, fog. She was always just outside the beams. So he routed himself back that way. On paper, it was the shortest line between two drops. Truth was, he needed to see what the world had done with the place where his life turned. The construction was gone by then. Fresh asphalt, new paint, all smooth and quiet, like nothing had ever happened. Except for the spot on the shoulder. You've seen them. Little roadside shrines that grow out of nowhere. There was a cross jammed into the dirt, wrapped in plastic flowers. A photo in a cloudy frame. That same bright jacket, folded under a rock. A cheap stuffed animal turning gray from the weather. He pulled onto the shoulder, killed the engine, and just sat there a minute, watching his own hazard lights blink against the memory. A woman stood by the cross, mid-40s, tired eyes, hands on the frame like she was trying to hold the picture down so it wouldn't float away. He walked over slow, asked if she was family. Her mother, she said. She talked about how her daughter hated asking strangers for help. How that night she texted, "If it gets worse, I'll try a trucker. One of them will stop. They always stop." Before he left, his eyes slid over the ribbons tied to the guardrail. On the newest one, in fresh black marker, was written a word only other drivers ever used for him. His CB handle. She couldn't have known it. After the memorial, he stopped trying to outrun it. "I'm going to tell someone," he said to me on the phone one night. "Cop, judge, priest, I don't care. Somebody besides you needs to know I was there." He started with the simple answer, 911. Half a ring, then a hiss of static and road noise, like his mic was pointed out the window. He heard his own engine, his own tires. Then a woman's voice came on the line. Not the calm script you expect, just a quiet, breathy. "I was just trying to get to the next exit." Same words the girl's mother told him she'd texted that night. He hung up so fast, he almost dropped the phone. "Bad connection," he told himself. "Glitch." But his hands wouldn't stop shaking on the wheel. So he aimed the truck toward the nearest town with a police station. No more calls, no more ghosts in the wire. Just show up, walk in, say the words. Fog came with him. It wasn't supposed to. The weather report had been clean. But mile after mile, a low white river slid across the asphalt, thickening in every dip and hollow until the world shrank down to 2 lanes and a tunnel of dirty light. There was a minivan ahead of him, dark, boxy, tail lights blinking through the mist. Every time he backed off to give them space, it felt like the fog pushed him closer again. Once, when the air cleared a little, he swore he saw her in their back window. Not a kid in a booster seat, her. Same bright jacket, same face he'd seen in his mirror on the shoulder. Staring straight past them, straight at his cab, he hit the brakes. The Peterbilt shuddered, trailer yawing just enough to wake the van up. They flashed their hazards, the driver waving an angry arm out into the night. My friend gripped the wheel and yelled into the empty passenger seat, voice cracking, "You want me, then take me. Leave them alone." The radio cut to dead silence. One soft knock came from behind his head, on the back wall of the sleeper, like someone agreeing. By the time he checked his GPS again, the route line had shifted. No more police station, no more town. Just a thin blue path calling him back toward the river and the bridge you and I started on. Cops, tow guys, and rumor did the rest of the telling. They found his Peterbilt nose down past the end of the bridge, cab crushed into the rocks by the river. Trailer folded up behind it like a fist. No skid marks long enough to call it an accident. Just one hard bite of rubber at the point where the lane bends and the guardrail starts. Dashcam survived somehow. The impact killed the feed, but not before it caught a few seconds that mattered. You see the fog first. Just white and more white, headlights punching a hole that closes right back up. Then, for a heartbeat, it thins. There's a minivan coming the other way. Kids' stickers in the back window, their headlights aimed right at his grill. And in the middle of his lane, between him and them, is a shape. Looks like a woman in a bright jacket. Looks like she's right where he hit her the first time. Looks like she's standing exactly where a man would aim if he wanted never to see her again. Wheel jerks. Not away from her. Away from them. Guardrail explodes into the frame. Then nothing. They said the family in the van went home with a story about a crazy trucker and a miracle. Not a scratch on them. My friend didn't get to go home at all. Now there are 2 crosses on that stretch of road. Hers on the shoulder, his closer to the start of the bridge. Drivers say on foggy nights you can hear someone on the CB whisper, "Don't just drive past her this time," on a channel nobody's keyed. You asked why I stopped for you on that on-ramp back there. Thumb out, rain in your eyes. Truth is, kid, I'd rather have a live stranger in my passenger seat than another ghost in my mirror. Out here, the scariest part isn't what you hit in the fog. It's the moment you see someone asking for help and decide whether you're going to touch the brake or the gas. For a while after my buddy went off that bridge, I drove like the road was made of glass. You probably noticed back there. I give hitchhikers more chances than most. That's his ghost riding shotgun with me, whether we say his name or not. Fog, shoulders, little roadside memorials. I don't blow past them the way I used to. We've put a lot of miles under us since that story. Different state lines, different weather. But it's still the same country, and it's got more than one way of looking back at you. You asked me a while ago if I ever get scared driving at night. Truth is, it's not the dark that bothers me. Dark is honest. It's when the dark starts lighting itself up that I get nervous. You ever run 90 out in West Texas? You ever see a little green sign for the Marfa Lights viewing area and think, maybe I'll pull over, stretch my legs, watch the weird desert show for 5 minutes? Yeah, I thought that too. Thing is, All the spooky stories you've heard so far were about people and trucks and bad choices. The Marfa one's different. Out there, it doesn't feel like you're dealing with other drivers or bad luck. Out there, it feels like the road itself is awake. And the lights aren't just something you look at from a distance. They look back. Enjoying the ride? Subscribe and like the video to keep us rolling. Next story coming up. Story 3. All the drivers I know who've seen the Marfa lights tell different stories. But there's one part that always sounds the same. There's a moment when it stops feeling like you're looking at the lights and starts feeling like the lights are looking straight at you. For me, that moment looks like this. It's past midnight in West Texas. The desert is nothing but black glass on both sides of the highway. No towns, no farmhouses, no glow on the horizon. Just my rig, the lane, and a stretch of US 90 that might as well be a tightrope over empty space. Except right now, I can't even see the rope. The road in front of me has vanished into pure darkness. My headlights punch out there and don't come back with anything useful. No reflectors, no signs, no stripe. Just a flat, dead black. Like the world forgot to load the rest of the map. That's not the worst part. The worst part is the lights. They're all around the cab. Some of them hang high over the desert like little suns, steady and white. Some drift low at hood level in pairs, like oncoming headlights with no truck attached. Others slide along the shoulder, keeping pace with me, bright as flares and just as quiet. They show up in the mirrors, in the chrome, in the corner of my eye. When I blink, they move closer. My CB is off. Power knob turned all the way down, little red light dead. But the speaker is talking. Calm male voice. No static, no accent. He says my full name, my handle, my current speed. Then he reads off a set of coordinates in that bored way dispatchers use when they've done this 1,000 times before. If you ever hear this rolling past Marfa, I tell you now, do yourself a favor. Don't pull into the viewing area, and don't answer if somebody calls you on 19. I did. Couple hours before this, it was just another overnight run through West Texas. Earlier that day, it didn't feel like the kind of run that ends with your name in ghost stories. Just another hot afternoon at a West Texas truck stop. Sun sitting on the parking lot like it had a grudge. Gravel popping under tires, heat waves dancing over a forest of antennas and chrome. Dispatch had called with a simple deal. Night run across US 90, light trailer, decent money if I got it there by morning. You'll go right past Marfa, the girl said. Try not to let the aliens steal you. Inside the diner, it was the usual show. Coffee that could take paint off a bumper, a waitress who'd seen every kind of bad day, and 3 drivers parked at the counter trading lies. They were already on the subject when I sat down. Marfa lights. One guy in a ball cap said it was just headlights off the highway, bouncing funny in layers of hot air. Another swore his cousin's friend had seen them drift over the desert like lanterns. The oldest of the 3 just stirred his coffee and said, "Tourists see a light show. Drivers see something else." I laughed along, played the skeptic. If it doesn't show up on a scale ticket or a fuel receipt, I don't believe in it. Didn't stop me from listening, though. Back in the cab, I checked the route. Straight line through empty space, Marfa sitting out there like a typo on the map. Sun dropped, sky turned purple, and the desert started turning into a shadow. A few miles down, I passed the first sign. Marfa Lights Viewing Area, 25 miles. "All right, Marfa," I said to nobody. "Let's see what you've got." First time I saw them, I honestly thought it was just somebody's back road. Sun was gone by then. Sky still had that last thin strip of dark blue on the edge, but the ground was already black. Headlights on high, cruise set just under the limit. Nothing in front of me but a long, straight ribbon of asphalt and the kind of emptiness you only get in this part of Texas. Off to the left, way out past the fence line, a few pinpricks of light showed up on the horizon. At first, they lined up like a string of cars on a road I couldn't see. 5, maybe 6 of them, low and steady, all moving in the same direction I was. I glanced at the map. Nothing out there but scrub and dirt. No ranch road, no service lane, just green nothing. Oil field traffic, I told myself. Work lights. Somebody forgot to tell the map. The longer I watched, the less they behaved like trucks. They slowed down without getting bigger, drifted apart, then slid back together. One climbed higher, like it had decided to stop being a headlight and try out being a star for a while. None of them threw beams. Just clean, round points, bright as welding arcs, and just as wrong for the middle of nowhere. The CB popped once, sharp. A voice, close and clear, just a man asking, "You see them?" I grabbed the mic out of habit. "Yeah, off my 9 o'clock. You up here with me?" Silence. Open channel hiss. No clicks, no laughter, no 10-4. Just the engine and my own breathing. When I looked back to the left, the lights were gone. My GPS blinked, lost its mind for half a second, and threw a new purple line across the screen. Straight through an empty green patch labeled with one word, Marfa. Then it snapped back to my regular route like nothing had happened. For a while, the night went back to being just night. I fell in with a couple of other trucks on 90 the way we do. You catch the same rhythm, same speed, same boredom, and before you know it, you've got yourself a loose little convoy. 2 sets of headlights in my mirrors, a voice from Louisiana talking about his 3rd divorce, somebody out of El Paso griping about rates. It felt good, normal, human. One by one, they started to fade. First, the Louisiana guy said he was peeling off for fuel. His taillights dropped back and were gone, but I could have sworn I still saw a pair of lights behind me holding the same distance. Then El Paso stopped answering. His last joke hung in the air with no laughter to catch it. I called his handle twice, got nothing but open carrier and a faint whistle. I checked the mirror again. Still 2 bright points following me, steady as a heart monitor. Only too steady. No bounce from the road, no change when the highway dipped or curved. Just 2 white coins hanging at the exact same height. I slowed a little. They slowed. I tapped the brake, flashed my markers, waited for a flash back. Nothing. No extra glare on the pavement. No shape of a hood. Just the feeling of being followed by something that had learned what taillights look like from far away and was doing its best impression. I called both their handles. The CB burped out a scrap of chatter that didn't belong to any of us. Old voices, talking about a different mile marker, a different storm, like I'd tuned into a recording. Then one of the headlights swung out to pass me. Not onto the lane, off the shoulder, out over the rock and scrub, smooth as a boat on water, bright and alone. It slid past my window at highway speed, close enough to light up my door. And there was no truck attached to it at all. Curiosity is a stupid disease we all catch out here. A few miles later, the sign started popping up again, green and polite. Marfa Lights Viewing Area, 5 miles. Marfa Lights Viewing Area, 1 mile. I told myself I'd drive past. Then my back started to ache. My eyes felt like sandpaper. And the idea of stepping out of the cab for 5 minutes sounded better than being the tough guy who never stops. The turnout was bigger than I expected. Paved lot, a low stone wall, a couple of information boards explaining mysterious phenomenon in friendly government language. Half a dozen cars, people in hoodies and flip-flops leaning on hoods, pointing phones at the dark. The lights were already out there. Far over the desert, where the land rolls flat and empty, little orbs drifted and hovered. Most folks were treating it like fireworks at half volume. Look, that one split in two. Maybe it's a train. It's just heat, babe, like a mirage. I watched with them for a minute. At first, it looked the same to me, dots and smears and tricks of distance. Then something clicked sideways in my head. The lights lined up. For a heartbeat, they drew a straight white line, like a highway from overhead. Then they flared, and in that flare, I saw a truck on its side, wheels spinning slow. Next flash, red, blue, red, like cruisers and an ambulance. Next, just fire. Nobody else flinched, nobody turned. A couple next to me argued about exposure settings on their phones. An older guy in a dusty hat was standing off by himself near the railing, hands in his pockets. When I glanced his way, he was already looking at me. "Most folks just get a pretty show," he said quietly. "If you're already seeing wrecks, driver, you don't want to stay long. Once the lights pick somebody out, they don't like to share." Back in the cab, I turned the key. The dash cam screen woke up with a new file I didn't remember starting. Marfa, 1001. Timestamp, 1 hour from now. I should have ignored it. I should have thrown the card out the window and let the desert eat it. Instead, I pulled off a few miles down, into a little gravel turnout with a busted picnic table and a trash barrel full of old burger bags. Killed my headlights, left the marker lights on, and stared at the dash cam screen until my thumb decided for me. I opened Marfa Zazna 1. It started out boring. My own hood, my own lane, the same stretch of 2-lane I was sitting on right then. Same mile marker, same curve coming up, same nothing on the shoulder. Then the world turned white. A sheet of light, like somebody had dropped a welding curtain over the camera. Under it, you could hear the engine jump, the tires bark, something heavy slam sideways. The picture spun once, caught a glimpse of sky and guardrail, then landed crooked. For a split second, the camera caught my face in the reflection off the passenger window. Blood on the forehead, eyes wide and not really seeing the glass in front of them. My own voice, rough and too close to the mic, said, "Don't follow the lights." Then the file cut off. I checked the timestamp. It was set for 48 minutes in the future. System clock on the dash matched my watch to the minute. I backed out and hit delete. The icon vanished, then reappeared a second later as Marfa 1002. Same length, same thumbnail. The CB speaker crackled, soft as breath. Calm voice again, like a man reading a weather report. "Keep rolling, driver. You're on schedule." 47 minutes to impact. I looked over. The power knob on the radio was still all the way down. I'd pulled that fuse myself last winter. I sat there a long moment, hand on the key, knowing I should turn around. Instead, I put it in gear and followed the highway back into the dark. My own death video had already driven through once. There's only so long you can pretend straight ahead is the only option. About 20 minutes after I watched myself die on that little screen, my nerves finally caught up with my foot. I told myself I wasn't running, just being smart. Long way around is better than no way around. I pulled up the GPS, killed the route on 90, and told it to find me anything that didn't say Marfa in a 50-mile radius. It chewed on that for a second, blinked, and spat out a new purple line. County roads, a state highway, Big, lazy loop north, back down into civilization. Good, I said. We're done playing. I took the next turnoff. Asphalt narrowed, shoulders crumbled to gravel and scrub. But it was still a road, and it was pointing me away from the mess. 20 minutes went by. Odometer climbed. Fuel ticked down. Green sign on the right shoulder. Marfa Lights viewing area. 5 miles. I told myself Texas loves to copy-paste signs. Different road, same distance. Coincidence. Another half hour. Same low rise in the land. Same crooked fence post with a trash bag stuck on it. Same sunburned billboard for a steakhouse 2 towns over. Same sign. Marfa Lights viewing area. 5 miles. The GPS screen hiccuped. Map vanished. And for a full 5 seconds there was nothing on it but a black field and one word in the middle. Stay. Then my route came back like nothing had happened. I pulled onto the shoulder and killed the engine. Stepped out into the dark. The desert was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. And then, from somewhere just off the pavement, I heard a familiar sound. My truck, my engine, my exact gear and RPM, rolling past me. Headlights swept over my boots, bright and clean. But when I looked up, there was nothing there. Just empty road and a rig that wasn't moving at all. That's when it hit me. I wasn't the only version of me out here anymore. I got back in the cab because I didn't know what else to do. Engine turned over like nothing was wrong. Gauges normal. Outside, the road just lay there, thin and gray under the stars, like any other back highway in the middle of nowhere. If it hadn't been for the word stay still burned into my brain, I could have believed I'd just scared myself with too much coffee and not enough sleep. I rolled slow. 50, 45. Just enough to feel like I was moving, not enough to feel like I couldn't stop if I had to. The first lights showed up ahead of me, low and far, like a town on the horizon where I knew damn well there wasn't one. As I got closer, the shapes resolved. Not buildings, not signs, headlights, dozens of them, lined up side by side, stacked in rows, too many for one road. Some high like big rigs, some low like pickups and sedans. Between them, red pinpricks blinked like hazard lights and brake lamps. They weren't on the pavement. They hung over the desert, floating a few feet above the scrub, moving in slow patterns that only almost made sense. Every time a pair of headlights flared brighter, I saw a scene inside the glow. A reefer on its side, trailer torn open like a can. A family car folded around a guardrail. A tanker burning so hot the air shimmered. Voices broke through the CB like water through cracks. If my wife calls, tell her, I'm not going to make this corner. Somebody, please answer. Then one voice cut clean through the rest. Calm, close. He said my full name, my street, the city where I keep my boots when I'm not on the road. Out over the desert, a fresh cluster of lights pulled together into the outline of a truck I knew too well. Same long nose, same bumper guard, same stupid little chrome mud flap weights. I watched its cab crumple in perfect silence. And for just a second, the driver made of light in that wreck turned his head and looked straight at me. At some point, you stop asking, what is this? And start asking, what do they want? Watching my own wreck play out in those lights, hearing my address come out of a dead CB, it clicked. This wasn't a history lesson. It was a catalog. Every bad ending the highway ever wrote down, flickering on repeat out over the desert. And now they were filing a new card with my name on it. The GPS chimed. Little happy tone, like it had good news. Ahead, The purple route line split in two. One branch bent off toward a town. Real name, real highway number. The kind of turn you take when you're done scaring yourself and want coffee and people again. The other branch went straight into a gray patch in the map labeled with nothing at all. Out the windshield, the world matched the screen. To the right, I could just make out a real exit sign in my high beams, half swallowed by darkness. Road dipped away, no lights, no promises. To the left, there was no pavement, but there was a road. It was made of lights, dozens of them, packed tight, stretching out across the desert like a landing strip. White and red, lows and highs, all aligned in a perfect glowing ribbon that pointed straight ahead. The voice came back over the dead radio, calm as ever. "We don't drag you, driver. You came out here because you wanted to see. One more mile and we can show you how it ends." I thought about my friend on that bridge. I thought about the container run. I thought about every cross on every shoulder I've rolled past without stopping. Then I did the only thing I hadn't tried yet. I reached out and turned everything off. GPS, radio, dashboard brightness, headlights. For a second, the cab went cave dark. No gauges, no map, just the rumble under my feet and the white smear of those lights outside. In that black, I could finally see where they weren't. A thin, honest slice of dark peeled away to the right, where the real exit waited. No glow, no invitation. I cranked the wheel toward the emptiness and trusted the feel of the pavement under the tires more than anything that wanted me to look at it. The light screamed without making a sound. World went white, then black, then just road. Yellow lines, stars, no voices in the speaker, no file named after me on the dash. For the first time that night, the only lights in front of me were my own. Couple weeks after that night, I was back on a different lane, trying real hard to forget West Texas altogether. Didn't work. In a New Mexico diner, I heard two younger guys at the next booth talking about Marfa. One of them was bragging he'd taken his girl out to the viewing area. "Didn't see much," he said. "Just some little dots. Kinda lame, honestly." The other one shook his head. "My cousin was out there last month. Swears he saw a truck way out over the desert. Not on the highway, off it. Just hanging in the dark with its lights blinking like it was trying to say something." Old timer at the counter cut in without turning around. "Some folks say there's a rig out there the lights didn't quite manage to keep," he said. Driver kept his wheels on the asphalt, but part of him still in the airwaves. "You be careful what you listen to on 19 around Marfa." Nobody laughed. They paid, went back to their roots, added it to the pile of stories we all swear we don't believe. I didn't tell them mine. I just keep rolling past that part of Texas when I have to. I don't stop at the viewing area. I don't chase strange reflections on the horizon. And if a calm voice ever says my name on a dead channel again, I'm not answering back. So when we passed those signs tonight, and you asked why we didn't pull off for the famous Marfa lights, that's why. All the drivers I know who've seen them tell different stories. But every one of us, sooner or later, says the same thing. There was a moment when it stopped feeling like we were watching the lights, and started feeling like the lights were watching us. Lights aren't the only thing out here that take an interest in you. You got ghosts in the fog, sure. You got weird desert tricks like Marfa trying to write your last mile ahead of time. You run long enough, the road will throw you all kinds of stories about what you see and what you hear. But some of the worst things you meet out here, you don't see first. You don't hear first. You smell them. Texas, New Mexico, all that empty sky, that's one kind of lonely. You drop down toward Arkansas and Louisiana, the lonely changes. The air gets heavy. Water gets closer to the asphalt. Trees crowd in. And there are places down there where it feels like the dark doesn't need lights or radios to find you. It just crawls up into your cab one breath at a time. You ever get routed off the interstate around Texarkana and sent down through the south side of Arkansas? 2-lane blacktop, nothing but bayous and ditches? You ever kill the engine near a creek at night and realize the air outside smells wrong, like something dead that hasn't had the decency to lie still yet? Yeah, I did that too. The lights out by Marfa wanted me to follow. Down in a little place called Fook, the thing under the bridge didn't want me to go anywhere at all. Enjoying the ride? Subscribe and like the video to keep us rolling. Next story coming up. Story 4. You ever smell something so bad it feels like it's trying to crawl inside your lungs and live there? That's what I'm breathing in when this part starts. I'm in the driver's seat, belt still on, hands locked around the wheel. My rig is leaned over at a sick angle, nose twisted toward the ditch. Back axles are sunk in something that sounds too wet to be dirt and too thick to be water. Out front, the headlights are stabbing into a wall of trees and hanging moss. Spanish moss drips down like somebody strung cobwebs between every branch. Beyond that, it's just black. No house lights, no porch glow, no highway hum, just swamp. Under my feet, underneath the cab, something big moves in the water. You can feel it more than hear it. Slow, heavy steps sliding through the muck, brushing against the frame. Every time it shifts its weight, the metal under me ticks and pops like it's thinking about giving up. And the smell. It's like a dead hog left in the sun, wet dog that never dried, swamp gas and old diesel all stirred together. It comes up through the floor, around the pedals, through the vents I thought were closed. My eyes water. My throat wants to close. It's so thick I can taste it. I've got the mic in my hand, knuckles white, talking low like maybe whatever's under me understands English. If you ever get sent down through Fook at night and that stink climbs into your cab like it's got legs, I whisper, don't shut that engine off. And don't lean down to see what's under you. I did. Something slides right against the bottom of the cab. 3 long, slow scratches scream their way through the metal under my boots. Couple hours before this, it was just a boring paper load cutting across the south side of Arkansas. Couple hours before all that, I was sitting under a different set of fluorescent lights, thinking it was just another night on the clock. Truck stop outside Texarkana. Bugs tap dancing on the windows, pumps ticking, smell of fry oil and burnt coffee sneaking through the door every time someone walked in. Dispatch had just called. I-49 was a mess with construction and some wreck. They were routing me down through the south side of Arkansas instead. Take the bypass, the girl said. Couple 2 lanes, you'll drop down past a town called Fook, then cut over. You'll be fine. It's quiet down there. Quiet. Yeah, that part was true. Inside the diner, 3 drivers were parked at the counter, chewing on burgers and scaring each other awake. One of them brought up Boggy Creek. Another said, Fook monster with a grin, like he was testing who'd bite. 7-foot swamp ape. 3-toed tracks. Smells like roadkill and bad dreams. You know the kind of talk. I did what you're supposed to do. Rolled my eyes, took a sip of coffee, said, only monster I'm worried about is the one in my fuel bill. Old boy 2 stools down didn't laugh. Just looked at me over his glasses, tired eyes and hands that knew too many steering wheels. You don't see him first, son, he said. You smell him. Smells like something that died, got up, forgot which way the graveyard was. If that hits you near the water, don't park. And if you shut her down and the stink gets worse instead of better? He paused. Turn the key back on and keep rolling. That means you picked his spot, not yours. On the way out, I passed the bulletin board by the door. Faded newspaper clipping pinned up there, yellow edges, headline about the Fook monster. Grainy black and white shot of something big and dark by a trailer, too blurry to prove or disprove anything. Under it was another sheet, half torn. Missing truck driver, last seen near Boggy Creek. I didn't think much of it then. I should have. The interstate peeled away behind me like I'd taken an exit out of the real world. GPS dropped me off the big road onto a state highway, then off that onto something skinnier. 2 lanes laid like black ribbon between trees and water. No center barrier, no shoulder to speak of. Just white line, ditch, and whatever the swamp wanted to send up out of it. Air got heavier the farther I went. I cracked the window for a little fresh, and it hit me how fast the smell changed. Lost the diesel and hot asphalt thing. Picked up still water, rotten leaves, a faint, sour hint of something dead a long time ago. Not enough to make me gag. Just enough to make my brain say, this isn't highway anymore. Traffic thinned to almost nothing. 1 mail truck. Couple of old pickups headed the other way, guys who knew better than to be out here for fun. After a while, it was just my headlights and the reflection of my own marker lights in the wet. 19 was still chattering. Drivers 100 miles away talking weather and weighing stations. Then, right in the middle of some guy's joke, the whole channel sucked in its breath. Heavy, like somebody big leaned right into the mic and exhaled slow. No words, just wet, rough breathing, way too close. Under it, something low and ugly, not quite a growl, not quite a cough. Everybody shut up at once. Then some nervous laughter, a couple of must be a loose line comments, and the world pretended it hadn't heard what it heard. I turned the volume down anyway. Up ahead in my high beams, I caught a shape on the right shoulder. Tall, solid, darker than the dark. For half a heartbeat, it looked like a man standing there, turned toward the truck. Then it stepped off the pavement in one stride and went straight down into the reeds and water. A minute later, I rolled over a little concrete bridge. On the low barrier, right by my lane, the light caught a single muddy print. 3 thick toes dragging claws along the edge. As my front tires hit the bridge, that sour, dead smell rushed into the cab like something underneath had just breathed out. I was already thinking too much about that footprint when the fuel light reminded me I still lived in the regular world. Next little pool of light on the map turned out to be a sad, leaning gas station half swallowed by trees. 1 island of pumps, a buzzing sign that only lit up half its letters, and a squat cinder block building with a Coke machine out front that looked older than I was. I pulled in slow. The pavement ended about 3 feet from the pump. After that, it was just mud and weeds and darkness. From where I sat, I could see the glint of black water between the trunks. Inside, the place smelled like bait, coffee, and old cigarettes. Fluorescent tubes hummed overhead. 1 cooler full of beer, 1 full of soda, and a little fridge of plastic tubs with worms and minnows floating slow. Guy behind the counter gave me the standard nod. Local, mid-50s, face like he'd been squinting at swamp his whole life. We did the small talk. Where you headed? Overnight load. Road's quiet tonight. I said, had to come through Fook because of the detour. Figured I'd say hi to your famous monster. He didn't smile at that. That thing's for movies and out-of-towners, he said. Ain't much famous down here but mosquitoes. But every time the door chime tinkled, his eyes went past me, out into the trees, like he was counting shadows. I paid for coffee and a stale sandwich. At the door, he called after me, voice lower. If you gotta park, don't park where you can't see dry ground out your window. And if you shut her down and the air outside suddenly smells worse instead of better, don't sit there wondering why. Turn the damn key and go. Back at the truck, I walked around once out of habit. On the dusty back door of the trailer, 3 long parallel streaks ran through the grime. Not deep, not metal, just lines where something with 3 big fingers had dragged through the dirt while I was inside. They smelled faintly like the bridge. Rain found me about an hour later. Not a good, honest storm. Just that steady southern drizzle that never quite turns into anything. Just makes the road slick and the trees shine. The blacktop narrowed again, shouldered right up against the water. On my right, the ditch had stopped pretending to be a ditch and turned into straight swamp. That's when the dash lit up. Little amber check light blinked on, then off, then on again. Coolant temp twitched. Oil pressure needle did a tiny nervous hop. Nothing screaming, nothing dying. Just the kind of thing you don't ignore when you're the only idiot on a 2-lane with 40,000 pounds behind you. I rolled a little farther, looking for even a hint of safe shoulder. Found a wider patch of gravel half collapsed toward the water and told myself it was good enough. Hazards on, eased her over, idled for a minute listening to the motor. Sounded fine. Just a sensor maybe. Just nerves. I killed the engine. Silence fell so fast it felt like somebody hit mute on the world. No fan, no turbo whine, no vibration under my boots. Just rain tapping on metal, frogs, a few bugs suiciding into the glass, and the smell. It didn't drift in. It hit. Like somebody had opened a door under the cab and shoved it up through the floorboards. Hot, rotten, greasy. Roadkill in August. Wet fur. Something long dead that never quite finished the job. It grabbed the back of my throat and held on. I sat there, hand on the key, telling myself it was just swamp gas. Just a dead deer somewhere down in the reeds. Then I remembered the old man's words. If you shut her down and the air outside suddenly smells worse instead of better. That was exactly what this was. I was just starting to twist the key back toward on when the whole cab dipped, real slow, like something very heavy had just laid a hand on the rear frame and started to lean. The lean got worse. Not a pothole bump, not a gust of wind. The whole cab eased down toward the right, like somebody was slowly pushing on the back corner of the trailer, testing how much give it had. The smell thickened with it. Whatever was out there, the wind wasn't bringing it in. It was coming up from underneath, straight through the floor. My eyes burned. My tongue felt coated. I found myself breathing shallow through my teeth like that would help. I killed the dome light with a slap and just listened. Under my boots, through the thin layer of insulation and metal, I could hear it. Slow, heavy contact. Not claws on steel, not yet. Just weight. Wet weight shifting on the frame, moving from crossmember to crossmember. Every few seconds, something big slid in the water under the trailer and bumped against the axles with a dull, hollow thud. In the side mirror, there wasn't much to see. Just the red blink of my own hazards off wet bark and the pale smear of water. Once, in between flashes, something darker than the night itself moved just beyond the last set of wheels. That's when a pair of headlights showed up way back on the road. I grabbed the mic like it was a lifeline. "Southbound on the 2-lane by Boggy Creek," I said, voice tighter than I wanted. "You're coming up on a rig hugging the right side. That's me. Do me a favor and roll up close. Tell me if you smell something dead in the water." The other driver came back, casual but curious. "Copy that." I was gonna ask what you were doing parked that close to the drink." His lights grew bigger in the mirror, then washed over the back of my trailer as he pulled in behind me and flipped on his highs. For a split second, the world behind my cab turned white. And in that wash, right at my rear axles, something huge and matted and wrong flinched away from the light and dropped back into the black. The smell yanked back just enough for me to get one clean breath. The other driver didn't key up for a few seconds after that blast of light, long enough for me to wonder if I'd imagined the whole thing. Then, buddy, I don't know what you got back there, but that ain't a gator." His voice was higher now, all the casual burned off. "Looked like a damn rug full of bones. I'm not staying parked next to it." "Yeah," I said. "Me neither." We agreed on the only plan that made sense. Get moving. Stay together. I fired the engine, that smell shoving back at the same time, like it didn't care for the noise. Gauges came up okay. I eased off the mud, felt the tires climb back onto actual pavement. The other rig tucked in behind me, close enough that his lights kept my mirrors full. For a few miles, it almost felt normal again. 2 trucks, 1 bad road, empty night. Then the stink came back. Not steady this time, waves. 1 mile I could almost forget it. Next mile it would slam into the cab like somebody throwing hot garbage through the firewall. My eyes would blur, stomach roll. Then it would thin out just long enough to remind me what clean air was. "You getting that?" I asked. "Yeah," he said, quieter. Like something dead keeps leaning in the window and pulling back. Out of the corner of my eye, the tree line seemed to move with us. Every so often, in the corner of the mirror, I caught a darker shadow running along the ditch, keeping pace. Too big for a man, too low for a truck. The other driver came on again, breath loud in the mic. "Something's out here by my door. I can't see it, but I can smell..." His words cut off in a grunt and a sharp curse. There was a metallic bang, the screech of brakes, a wet crunch of tires fighting mud. I hit my own brakes, heart in my throat. In the mirror, his rig was no longer behind me in a straight line. It was sideways across the road, cab tipped toward the swamp like something underneath had decided to lift. I stopped well short of him. Didn't pull up nose to tail like you would for a breakdown. I let a good 50 yards of wet blacktop sit between us, hit my hazards, and just watched his rig rock a little in the red blink. "Hey," I said into the mic. "You still with me?" Nothing. I called his handle again. Dead air. The only sound was my engine and the little tick of cooling metal. I didn't want to get out of that cab. I really didn't. But there's a point where staying put feels worse than moving, and I just rolled past it. I grabbed my flashlight, popped the door, and stepped down. The air hit me like a fist. Whatever that thing was, it had dragged its smell along with it. Heavy and sweet and rotten. I nearly lost my dinner right there in the gravel. His truck sat sideways across both lanes, back wheels half sunk toward the ditch. One headlight was busted, the other pointed up into the trees, making the Spanish moss glow like cobwebs. "Hey!" I yelled, more to prove I still had a voice than anything. No answer. Driver's door was hanging open, seat empty, belt swinging slow. There were scratches in the paint by the grab handle, 3 parallel gouges that hadn't been there when he passed me earlier. I played the light down the side of the cab and into the mud by the steps. Big, 3-toed tracks punched deep into the soft ground, full of black water. Some of them overlapped boot prints. All of them headed back toward the trees. From the dark beyond my beam, something big drew a long, ragged breath in and let it out. Two dull red reflections blinked on between the trunks. Low, then a little higher, like whatever owned them had just stood up. I realized exactly how far my own cab was behind me. There's a special kind of stupid that makes a man turn his back on whatever's breathing in the dark and run. I hit that level. I turned and went for my own truck like the road was on fire. Boots slipping on wet pavement, flashlight beam jerking all over hell, trees, ditch, my own shadow 10 feet tall. Behind me, something big moved. You can hear the difference between a man running and a thing built for that ground. A man slaps and scrambles. This sounded like wet telephone poles hitting mud. Whoomp, whoomp, whoomp. The smell rolled after me in a wave. Hotter, thicker, like it had been bottled under that sideways cab and I'd just uncorked it. By the time my rig filled my vision, my lungs were burning and my legs were jelly. I hit the step crooked, nearly missed the grab handle, clawed my way up and slammed the door just as something huge hit the side. The whole cab jumped. Door panel bent inward with a sound like a soda can under a boot. For a heartbeat, the dome light flickered. And in that weak flash, I saw a wall of filthy, dripping hair. An arm too long, muscles knotted under the fur. Claws, black and curved, raking down the glass and into the metal below. The truck rocked again. Rear end slithered deeper into the muck, nose edging toward the ditch. Water gurgled under the floor. I twisted the key. Engine coughed, then roared awake. I dropped it into gear, mashed the pedal. Tires spun, flung mud, found nothing. Under my feet, right below where I sat, braced and shaking, something dragged itself along the frame. 3 long, slow scratches screamed through the metal. I felt every one of them in my boots. I yelled something wordless and ugly, jammed the wheel straight, and stayed on the throttle. For a second, the world was just noise and stink and shaking. Then the drive tires bit. The whole rig lurched forward, ripped itself out of the sucking mud, and jumped back onto the blacktop. In the side mirror, lit by my own tail lights and the busted glow from the other rig, something huge and hunched exploded out of the reeds onto the shoulder and dropped to all fours, running after me like I'd just rung a dinner bell. There's this thing that happens when you hit real light after too much dark. It's not just your eyes. Your whole body doesn't quite believe it. Up ahead, past a long curve of trees and black water, I saw it. A pool of sodium yellow glow hanging in the night. Couple street lights, a little gas station, maybe a sheriff's cruiser nosed up by the door. Civilization in miniature. Behind me, something big was still on the shoulder. I couldn't see it all the time, but every few flashes of my hazards, I caught a hint of motion at the edge of the reeds. Still running, still interested. I buried my foot and didn't look at the temp gauge. If the motor wanted to blow, it could blow under a roof with people watching. The second those overhead lights hit my windshield, the smell broke. Not faded. Broke. Like somebody cut a line. One breath it was all swamp and rot and hot, wet fur. Next breath it was just gas fumes and rain on hot pavement and the sour comfort of a bad truck stop. I didn't stop at the pumps. I rolled right up as close as I could to the front door, killed the engine, and more or less fell out of the cab, legs shaking. The deputy on duty took one look at me and reached for his radio. I told them about the other truck, the sideways cab, the open door, the tracks. They called it in, got a couple more units out, went back down that road with spots and rifles. They found the rig. They found the prints. They found hair stuck in my bent door and 3 deep claw marks under my cab where the metal still doesn't sit right. On the report, it says, "Bear and panic driver." that's fine. Paper's gotta say something. You asked me why I kept the engine running when we rolled past all that water back there. Why I didn't just kill it and take a nap like you said your old boss used to. Here's why. Most of the stories you hear about the Fook monster are from tourists and movies. The ones I listen to are from drivers who smelled him under their floorboards. Not all of them made it to morning to tell it twice. So if you're ever routed through that part of Arkansas on a wet, quiet night, and you shut down and the air outside suddenly smells worse instead of better, turn the key back on. Whatever's out there likes its trucks quiet. You hear that engine? Still humming, still pulling. 4 stories later, and it's just you, me, and a strip of highway sliding under the wheels. You've heard about the dead freight that should have stayed on the water. The girl in the fog my buddy didn't stop for. The lights in West Texas that like to write your last mile. And the thing in an Arkansas swamp that doesn't mind getting its fur dirty for a taste of steel. Most drivers get one story like that in a lifetime. I got more than I ever asked for. Every time I try to park it for good, something from out here sneaks back in. A cough the doctors can't name. A voice on a dead channel saying my handle. Headlights in the mirror with no truck attached. That swamp stink blowing in through the vents when there's nothing but dry land for 100 miles. So I keep rolling. Maybe I'm stubborn. Maybe the road doesn't like crossing your name off once it's written it down. We're coming up on your exit. I'll drop a gear, ease over, let you out under something bright and normal. You'll grab your bag, say thanks, and head for whatever life you've got that isn't measured in logbooks and mile markers. If you look back and don't quite see my headlights in the lot, if for a second you can't tell whether I pulled away or was never really parked there at all, don't think too hard about it. Just start your engine. Keep your eyes open. Out here, you're never really alone on the road. Sometimes the monsters run beside you in the dark. And sometimes they give you a ride, tell you what to watch for, before they let you go. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the bell so you won't miss what's next.